Welcome to the $1 Million Blueprint with Karen Pudetti, where we can talk about the honest truth about either starting a business or growing your business to the $1 million mark. I will give you a roadmap that provides you with the ideal client or buyer, financial wisdom, marketing, branding, leadership, and so much more. Thank you for joining the $1 Million Blueprint. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the $1 Million Blueprint with Karen Pudetti. Today we are going to be talking about fire fast, hire slow, building your dream team. I can't wait to get into let you know all the things I did wrong in this particular section. Definitely was not my niche. So, what do we mean when we say hire slow, fire fast? This is like a business principle emphasizing careful and deliberate hiring followed by swift determination of underperforming employees. Basically, if they're not working out, get rid of them sooner than later. It suggests that taking your time to find the right fit during the hiring process, but not hesitating to let the employees go who aren't performing well or don't align with your company culture. You know, when we say hire slow, this means dedicating sufficient amount of time and resources to the recruitment process. It involves thorough vetting, conducting multiple interviews, assessing skills, and evaluating the cultural fit. Again, I did none of those. It also means avoiding rushed decisions, which that is something I did. But you're not supposed to hire just to fill a position quickly, but rather seeking the best long-term match. And reducing costs. A careful hiring process can prevent costly mistakes for hiring the wrong person. And the problem is when you generally hire the wrong person, you tend to keep them longer than you should ever, costing you more and more money. Fast refers to the practice of terminating employees who are not meeting your expectations or they are creating an impact on the team that is not desirable. For instance, it means addressing poor performance promptly, not allowing underperformers to fester and negatively affect others, addressing poor performance promptly, not allowing underperformance to fester and negatively affect others, protecting team dynamics, removing employees who cause conflict or disrupt the work environment, and maintaining productivity, ensuring that the team can function effectively and efficiently with the new person. Why is this approach valued so much? Because if you were like me in the past and did everything wrong and backwards, you will realize this is the best approach possible. By removing poor fits, the overall team environment can be more positive and more productive. And you also enhance performance. By holding employees accountable can improve individual performance and company outputs. Again, these were things I did not do. Can't wait to share a few stories with you. Avoid prolonged employment of underperformers can save on salary, training, and related costs. In essence, hire slow, fire fast is about making strategic decisions that benefit both the company and the employee in the long run by prioritizing quality and accountability. It does and has become such a popular saying when we are saying hire slow and fire fast. But this is something all leaders or anybody hiring should definitely do. A lot of startups hire fast and fire slow. A basis for speed combined with the pressure for high growth drives many leaders to be quick to hire, such as myself, I must say that. You know, when you embrace the hire slow, fire fast mentality, it can build an extremely strong team. To understand this approach allows you to apply the measures twice mantra, rather than rapidly moving candidates through a lightning fast hiring journey, focuses on evaluating each one very thoroughly. This strategy is a good way to steadily populate your workforce with high performers and avoid the expense and embarrassment, which I have shown over and over again, for a hiring mistake. It used to become a joke when I would hire somebody and they'd kid me, say, oh, wonder how long they'll last. You definitely want to reduce the risk of onboarding a liability by measuring twice with a slow hire mindset. This doesn't mean slow hire is foolproof. Of course not, it's not. There's always a potential for a poor fit applicant. It makes it through the application process and the interviewing process as well. But where the fast principle comes into play, fast fire doesn't mean terminating new employees who make errors. Everybody makes errors. It comes with the territory, and you have to understand that aspect of it. But when you're trying to mentor or coach somebody and they're not coachable, just get rid of them. That's when I mean fire fast. If you're people-centered, fast fire can feel uncomfortable because people don't really like that. They want to do the slower process. However, it's compassionate and appropriate. Firing someone who is not an asset and probably isn't happy working for your company anyways is good for both of you. Remember that termination doesn't have to be a smack of a two-sided failure. Some companies that fire fast offer employees graceful exits. For example, Amazon, the giant retailer everyone knows and loves, offers dissatisfied warehouse employees. They could leave with a fiscal safety net and no precautions, which greatly improve the company's overall health and stability. Above all else, firing fast sends a message to the rest of your team that you're serious about striving for excellence, as long as you're not violating ethical or legal considerations or firing someone you don't like for personal reasons. You're doing something for the benefit of the stakeholders or the owners as well as the employees. Today, employers can adopt more practices when hiring new employees. They can be cautious and deliberate for a more thoughtful approach to workforce management during the economic downturn. With that in mind, you have little to lose and much to gain by embracing hire slow, fire fast. One of the most important of those gains is a resilient, future-ready team. Developing and retaining talent is huge. It costs so much more money to get rid of someone and bring somebody in new. And if you continuously do that, you're basically crushing your profit and really could end up in the red. So developing and retaining talent. Once you've begun populating your team with people that you believe have the ability, desire, and mission aligned to help your company reach its goals, you can take the next step. This step involves implementing some tried and true employee retention strategies. After all, you've spent energy and resources looking for great people. Now you want to keep them engaged and thriving. And you can do that through a few managerial solutions. One, invest in your employees. That doesn't mean just keep giving them cash, of course. You should never allow yourself to see employees as costs. They're investments. And really, if you treat them that way and they know that, they will always work much harder for you. The better their performance, the better the performance of your company. Obviously, sounds simple, but to many people, it's not. To ensure that your people have the skill sets you need, put a push on your upskills and reskilling programs, making sure you're giving them the education to do so. Putting your people through regular training shows that you support them in becoming the best possible versions of themselves. This can help you reduce the turnover. High-performing employees will always be motivated by improving their core skill sets, and your support can be what pushes them to improve and take them to the next level. Remember, if you have what you consider your ideal employee, always invest in them and you will always get that out again. Another thing is promote from within. The advantage of hire slow, fire fast is that you'll end up with a great team and great people working for you. These are often achievers who hope to move up the corporate ladder in their careers. In other words, they should be considered for promotions and advancements. I have seen several times where an employee wants to do more, wants to do different, but they're doing such an excellent job where they are. The leadership team doesn't want to jeopardize that and move that along. That's a terrible thing for the employee who wants to learn more, because they're going to get very discouraged, dissatisfied, and maybe even start looking somewhere else. You should always know where your employee wants to go, what they want to learn next, and have a career program or growth program for each person. This doesn't mean you should ping pong people from one position to the other, and no way do that. But when you slow hire can also be relevant when preparing an employee for another role. Having internal advancement paths helps temper the ideal employee and to grasp what they want to see down the road for themselves as a career path. Employees will therefore stick with you longer, which means less reduction, less hiring process, and they will become more in tune to your company, and they'll want more knowledge, want to stay stronger, and a tighter culture. As you know, this rocky and unpredictable labor market for the past couple years has really shook up some of the hiring methods. It's time to regain our control and build your dream team by measuring twice and cutting once through the hiring slowly and firing fast. It sounds so easy, but honestly, it's kind of crazy how so many people just want to get that person in the door, get them set up in their new job, and then we've kind of set them up to fail. And as you know, since the pandemic, the labor landscape has been as turbulent as the economy. From quiet quitting to mass resignations, the shakeups have been coming. The turnover rates have been going up, up, up. So again, you need to instill an amazing interviewing process. When doing that, you will weed out those who don't want to go through it, and you'll see right from the start who might endure the process, go through it, and be a really great candidate. According to Robert Half from 2022, 6 out of 10 businesses settled for lesser candidates than what they were really looking for, because they just felt they needed to settle and they gave up on the interviewing process. So let me talk about some of the things I have done. The hiring process, really take your time to do it. I absolutely hated it. It was not my niche. It wasn't something I enjoyed doing. For any of you who are A-type personality, that was me. Wanted to go in, ask a few questions, tell them a little bit about the job, see if they had a couple questions, and then I was done. I definitely did not enjoy the process. So we decided, after I had hired, I can't even remember the number of people I had hired, and they weren't a good fit. But I decided, okay, I'm terrible at this. I don't like it. This isn't working for the company. So I sat down and really thought about it and decided I need to be the last person anyone meets with in our company. And my interview will be short, but I decided, okay. So I had my manager. She was going to do the preliminary interview and talk to them. We had certain questions we asked, and attached to this, I have written out a whole question list for interviewing. And I will, if you go to Rags to Riches on my website, you will be able to download that. It's a free download of all the questions that we now ask. So the first person would ask those and go through it, give a tour. Then we'd either ask them to stay that day and shadow for an hour to 2 hours, or if that wasn't good timing, come back in the next day or so and shadow for a few hours, just so they truly understood what they were getting themselves into. And so then we'd ask them, to come back usually, and shadow. And you could really tell at that point if someone is interested in your company, interested in the position. Did they do any research on their own about, the owner, the company, and things of that nature? So you got a good feel at that. And then we'd ask them to come back another time. And depending on what department they were in, I would have at least 3 or 4 people from that department that would sit down with them in our conference room and not so much one-on-one, but talk as a whole, see how the person, you know, interacted with everybody in the room, what they were asking, what they were saying, did they look bored, some of the basic stuff, how they got along. Basically, and even more personal stuff. I know you're not allowed to ask personal, but I wanted to see how they get along with the entire team now. I mean, I'm looking to see, are they a really good fit to our culture? Is there anything that stands out? So then we would do that. And that usually lasted a couple hours. Somebody would definitely show them, what their day would look like, not just tell them, but show them. And then we'd ask them again to come back. And I always thought you weeded them out if they didn't come back at any time. So that was always easier than hiring them really quickly and then having to get rid of them. So then they would come back and they would meet with me again. And at that point, we pretty much knew if this was a good fit or not. If they got to me, it was a good fit. They were just looking for my blessing on it. And I had my own set of questions to ask. So there were times they came back 4 or 5 times, but I do believe that doing it that way was instrumental in changing our entire process. And there was this one time when I had a consulting clients, and this has happened a couple times. And I would ask them, like, I'd go into their business and I'd ask them, so what made you hire, say Anne over here? What was her, duties when you hired her? What is she doing now? And you would be shocked to hear, how she started and where she came from and stuff. And there were times when I would ask, this person is so combative and so not what you want your culture to be. Why are they still here? And you will get answers like, I don't want to go through the interviewing process. She's better than me spending my time finding somebody. It's better than not having anybody in that position at all. Or I would ask, now, if you could have 3 or 4 more of her just like that, do you want them? Hell no. Okay, great. So why is she here again? So you would get that all the time. And I'll never forget, I was going to a school, and a lot of times I'll go there. They'll ask me to come in and speak on different things. And one of the head of the school pulled me aside and said, hey, Karen, why did you hire, we'll just call her Eve. Why did you hire Eve? And I just looked at her. I just needed a body. I did not have time. And they were like, okay, well, that really makes sense, because I was shocked when I heard you hired her. And I was like, yeah, not my finest moment. And they said, are they still there? I go, hell no. They lasted 2.5 weeks. And they laughed, and I go, yeah, I didn't think she was going to last long there. And they called me out on it. And I'm like, oh, here I go again with this. And I was like, and I honestly, if they had a heartbeat at times, I was like, fine. That's good, perfect. And no wonder at one point I was struggling with my culture and why I was having difficulties with a few people. So it does make a huge difference. Take your time at the beginning as opposed to, having to change it halfway through. The problem, because when you hire someone, of course there's training involved. There's all the time getting the employees set up, the training, the extra education that goes with it, and they don't work out. And you've just spent all your man hours, so-and-so's man hours, all this time, effort, energy, and really you shouldn't have hired them in the first place. And it really comes down to as simple as that. Are they really the right fit for your team? Would you, if you could, make 3 or 4 more of them? Or was there something you would change? Because really, the wrong person in the company obviously will cost you money. The whole process costs you money. It can really ruin your team morality. It can really, really decrease productivity. And I have seen firsthand, unfortunately, that when you bring in someone that is not the right fit, it could cause havoc on your team, and it could cause like other people leaving who you don't want to leave. So really take the time to really figure out the hiring process. Also, definitely always be hiring. um, you know, I tell people we're always in the interviewing process until we find the right one, then we hire them. Because if you ask somebody, oh, are you hiring? It should be yes, you're hiring all the time because you're always looking. So there's that as well. And actually, when you are hiring, make sure you are definitely sitting down of where they are now, if they're a new hire, and where they could potentially be, where they'd want to be. Really have that career path set up, because it's one thing to hire them, but to have them come, start, and then go nowhere, people don't want that. They want to know what's their potential, what can they do. So yes, hire slow and fire fast, as opposed to the way I used to do it when I was hiring oh so fast and firing oh so slow. So yes, your onboarding experience really needs to be one of your big staples of how you run your business. And also, once you say, okay, you're hired, what is the process from that point on? How do you bring them in? What does that look like? What is of course, all the paperwork and stuff like? I mean, you really need to have that fairly ironed out. So do you set up somebody that could be their go-to person? That should be really figured out as well. When someone asks me now, they'll say, oh, what's the most important thing that you have in your company? And really, it boils down to your people. Your people, especially in the service industry, your people are your major assets. And if you put your time and money into those who are the right fits for them, great things will happen. And of course, the opposite is true. It could be devastating as well if you don't. They're important to your brand, to your audience of who you are, what you stand for. So figure out and really make your hiring process a strict, very detail orientated, fairly long to make sure someone's got the, desire to go all the way through it. Have that in place right at the beginning. And then throughout the process, have as many people talk to them as possible, ask questions, see if they would fit your culture, because again, that's so huge. They could be the best, say hairstylists in the world, but they don't fit your culture, it's going to be a disaster. And see what their long-term goals and plans are. It sounds simple, I know it is, but really it's a game changer. And it unfortunately really took me probably 8 years to finally say, okay, enough of this craziness. And ever since COVID, I do think it's even more important now. I think times have changed, have changed, what people desire, what they want, what they expect has changed. So, from this day forward, make it one of your major business plans of succeeding. So anyways, my goal for you is to definitely hire slow, hire fast for sure, and make sure they are like the best fit. So take your time. And if they aren't, for some reason, if you go through the whole process and they're not, then just The minute you really think that they're just not going to fit with you, or, they weren't meant for your team, get rid of them. Don't prolong it. Don't drag it out. The longer you drag it out, the worse it generally becomes. I hope today you enjoyed today's podcast, and I really hope you got some tips from this and really just take your hiring process to the next level, and I swear it will help you out in the long run. Have a great day. See you next time.